Hello, Embird users. We are back with another curly plant video. And if you remember on the first video, we went over the core from a library. So this circle core was from the library, and we actually created it originally as an overflow. So up here was our original. If I unhide it, it was like an overflow. And we loved it so much, we decided to keep it, but we had to shrink it to fit in our hoop. So we converted it to an outline, which is the green here. And let's hide the orange again, the original. And then the green was a bunch of outlines. You could see them down here. Well, now for this lesson, we're going to go back to the original. We're not going to do any more cores for this lesson. We are going to do origin point for this lesson. So I'm going to hide the outlines. I'm going to go back to the original. And if we're going to do origin point, we probably aren't going to be able to use a monogram, but we'll see. You never know. So I'm just going to hide it. And so this was our original mesh. If I go into params, see how beautiful it is? It's just so lovely. And we had used an overflow, and that was seed 16. For some reason, I thought it was seed 15. I mean, you know, there's so many options. It's easy to get confused. But when we chose, like I said, our growth kind, we chose from core. And when we chose from core, we got this core tab to be bolded, and you know, that's how we then had to go in, click on that tab, decide what kind of core we want. We decided we're going to choose our core from Embird's library, in which case we had to come down here, go to the library glyphs, and choose one, and we chose the circle. Okay, so for this lesson, going back to the options tab, for the growth kind, we're going to choose from origin point. So you'll kind of want to have this little icon on your design before we go into this. Or I could just hit done and go and make sure it's there. I think I already put it there. But if not, we'll go back and make sure. And like I said in the first video, Embird did say on their website that if you don't put an origin point on your design, Embird will take the center of that object. I should call this an object, sorry. Embird will take the center of the object and use that as your origin point. But a couple of times I found that I locked up the program because I didn't have an origin point on here when I tried to use origin point as my growth kind. So I would just put it on there. You know, it's still a new program, so you never know. So we're going to go over that today. So we'll leave it at that. Let's hit done, and I'll make sure that you understand what a origin point is. So in my original object, my original mesh object, if I go into edit, see, I put that mesh origin there. Now I'm in 3D. If I go into normal, you'll see that I put it like right at 0, 0. I put it at the center, but you could put it anywhere. I could come over here and right click and then left click place and then place mesh origin here. And now it's over there. You can even place it outside of the object. So I could right click there, place mesh origin here. That doesn't mean it's going to start emanating from out here. It'll probably start emanating from like right here on the edge of the object, you know, and then it'll emanate out. But we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put my cursor there, and you could even zoom in. I could take my square, or my magnifier rather, and make a little square. And just so that I could get right in the center, and then place mesh origin here. It's a little off actually. Let me try to make a smaller square. Yeah, see, I'm off. So too bad we can't like snap to. I mean, I have snap to grid on, but I don't know if we can snap to with an origin. I'm just not sure. So I'm just going to come here. And I'm not touching the screen, I'm kind of hovering on it, because if I touch it, I think I'll put a node there. And I'll just try my best. Place mesh origin. It's still a little off, but that's pretty good. I don't think I could move it. I don't think we can move a mesh origin. Yeah, it's not letting me zoom in anymore. I think I'm maxed out. Oops, see, I put a node there by clicking. So Control C. So I'm going to go with that because when I'm zoomed out, it's going to look centered. So I'll just click this. It'll go 1 to 1. And there's my mesh origin. I'll hit the check mark or enter. And I'll go back into params. And my growth kind is going to be from the origin point. I'm going to keep all of my other settings the same. So my range is going to be a 7. That means I'm going to have, you know, a big diversity of sizes, you know, because it's 7. So it's almost 8. So it's going to have a lot of different size levels, maybe 7 different sizes. I'm not exactly sure because remember it's kind of pseudo, what was the word they used? Oh, I can't remember the word. Not pseudo organic, but I can't remember the word. But the way it's generated, it's very organic. And I'll leave the maximum sprouts as 4, so it'll be like a sprout, 2, 3, 4. But the scale is going to be pretty big, you know, almost as big as it can be, because we've already kind of experimented with that. This time I'm not going to use overflow though. I'm going to just see if I could keep them in the interior. I'll leave the seed at 16. Because that's like our pattern. And I got leaf 2 selected. I guess I'll just go with that for right now. My width is going to still be wide. The length, I made my length smaller for some reason. And my curliness is almost 100, but 75% is really cute because it's not a total circular. It looks kind of neat. So we'll go with that. Go back to the options tab. And else was I going to look at? Let's go up. I want to look at the flowers tab. Okay, so I have include outer contours. I'm going to uncheck that because I don't want anything to connect to an outside box. I want to just try to get it right in the center without making a connection to an outside. And then I'll just uncheck this. We don't have any holes here, but so these would be unchecked, my minimum length. So it's just this tab, and this tab is basically what I'm working with. And I think the first time I hit apply, I'm just going to use leaves. So my flower tab is still for flower kind, I chose library, but then under library, you have to go here. Oh, the default is showing. I don't want any flowers for my first time. So I'll click this and I'll just hit the trash can. So now when I hit the check mark, there's nothing here. So we won't have any flowers, but we always have a leaf, leaves. And that's it. Because from origin point, you don't get these two tabs, either one of them. For the core, this will show if you choose from core, and you'll get to choose a base if you have any of the rotations. So since we have neither of those chosen, these are grayed out. So here we go. We're going to click apply, like I said, and we're not going to have any flowers this time, and we're just going to see. It's going to be interior, and there you go. Click apply. And I have to remember to rename this. So it grayed out, that's good. Okay, we got it. So let's hit our minus button to zoom out so we can see what that looks like. Okay, we clicked interior. Doesn't look like this kind of bombarded with the end and got cut off, but I'm not sure. Let's hit done and let's just click outside. Okay, so it all generated. Let's resave this with a different name. Design, save as. So it wasn't the overflow, it was, gosh, these names are getting long. So I have no echo. And it's the origin. Okay. And I'll hit enter twice. So here's the origin point at 0, 0. And you can kind of see, I'm going to use my plus sign. That's where it's originating from. That's your origin point. And they're coming out. Now remember, I had 4 for the maximum amount of sprout generations, and I had 7 for my, let's move this over. If I get this, let me zoom out to get the entire hoop in. Should be able to see it if I go to the params. If you're like maybe 2/3 of the way into density map, I think you can still see the entire hoop. But oh yeah, we're good. My range is 7, so you could see I do have a big leaf there, a big one there, and a small one there. I do have different sizes. And let's see if we can see a maximum of 4 sprouts somewhere. So I've got, maybe this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's like a maximum of 4. Now here's a big one, because remember, we've got a big range. Here's like 1, and then like 2, and then 3, 4. I mean, it's just crazy. Let's see, if this was 1, would this be 2, 3, 4? No, because then that would be 5. So it is hard to even count them. But you kind of get the idea. It's originating from here. So that's kind of neat. But let's just say that it's okay. It's nice. It's very organic. Maybe we want it to be a little bit more symmetrical. Well, in that case, we should make our range a smaller number. It's like 2 or 1, so that they all look kind of the same size. Now, is it going to be symmetrical, like right, left, up, down? Probably not. It's probably still going to be organic because remember, from origin point, they're just kind of sprawling out. If we wanted more symmetry, we choose one of these rotations, here. Or we choose from core because the cores are usually symmetrical. But from origin point, it's pretty organic. But let's just see what range 2 does. It's not going to give us as much difference in the sizes, okay, because it's a range 2. But they're still going to be kind of big because we have our overall scale at almost 300. So, and we still want it to stay interior. We'll just keep the same seed. So the only thing we've changed is the range. Then after that, we'll add a flower and see what happens. But we'll click apply. Oh, I actually like that better. That's very pretty. And that would be pretty on a quilt block, to be honest. Even though the plants are 2 layers of stitching, it would still be pretty on a quilt or even on a handbag. It would be very pretty. So, and that's a range of 2. So now that they're somewhat closer in shape, let's add a flower. So we'll get our flowers from the library. We could go into our fonts because I know I have some flower fonts. But I'll just go into Embird's library, which means I click this tab and then I click this triangle. I love the roses. I'm not keen on the flowers that have the stem because they don't look natural. And I was going to request to Dushan that we get some of these without the stem. Like they're so cute, some of them. These, this is cute. A lot of them are really cute, but having the stem, for some reason, it doesn't look natural to me. So I'm going to try to pick one that doesn't have a stem, like the rose, or this one's cute. These are cute, but these aren't really flowers, they're emblems. So I'll just go with the rose because that is one of my favorites. And I'll click the check mark. So I only have 1 flower showing. And I'm going to put the amount of flowers to be 100%. Because then I'll get a lot of them. And then, once I see how they generate, then I can adjust this. I don't like the compression because I think the roses look better with the bottom wide. Because compression, what it does, it makes the bottom narrower. It just doesn't look good on the rose. Now, maybe it'll take away those stems, if I chose one of the other ones. I don't know. I haven't tried it. And then the scale of the rose, I'll leave it at 100%. Okay. And then everything else on the leaves, I'm leaving the same. So now this time, the only thing I'm changing is I'm adding flowers. So we'll go back to our options tab just to refresh our memory. Okay. And I'll hit apply. Oh, okay. Those roses are huge. They are really big. And you can see that they kind of overlap because one thing that to note about when you do generate things with these type of computer generated, designs, you're given like a certain field size that your little glyph can take up. So obviously the field that we're being allotted according to our params, you know, our overall sprout scale and our range, I guess those two items, what they're telling us is you don't have a big enough field here for such a big flower, 100%. So let's just right away, just let's go down to 50. Now 50 is the smallest you can get. I don't know what I want to do. Maybe I'll go 75 at first, just to see on the scale. And we're going to leave the amount at 100%, but maybe, I'm not sure I like them doubled up. So again, I'm going to go down to 75. Enter twice since I clicked down there in that box. And I'll click apply. Because I've noticed if you go down in the amount, you don't get a lot of doubles like that. Okay. Oh, it's still I got a double up there. That's interesting. Very interesting. I mean, it's really pretty. I put the amount down to 75, and I also put the scale down. Maybe I'll put the amount back up to 100. And maybe I want them to be closer to the same size. But look, my range is at 2. Let's just see what happens. Now I know I'm changing 2 variables. So I changed the range and I changed the amounts. I'm going to have more of them, but things are going to be closer to all the same size. And I do believe that that range, that size level, does also mean the flower sizes are going to be closer to the same size. So let's hit apply. I mean, for a 2, that's quite a difference in, oh, okay, they're closer to the same size, but there are still a lot of them. It's interesting that most of them are kind of like on the end. There's one here and one here. But again, if we didn't want these 2 in here and we only wanted these on the ends, we can convert this to an outline and delete these 2. We could just delete them. That would be easy. Remember, it's a 2 layers, so you got to delete it, you know, a few times. But if they're all outlines, sometimes you can select, you can go over and select them, you know, with your select button, and it might select a bunch of them. But maybe not. Maybe not. It might be more difficult. So instead of doing that, then maybe I would just come over here and make it, you know, the amount, try 80% and hit apply. I'm kind of okay with the size, kind of. I almost feel like I want them to be even smaller than 75. Okay. So now the amount is less, but it's quite a bit less. Quite a bit less. So that's interesting. So you get something very organic with origin point. So if I bumped the scale down to say 60, and I bumped the amount up to say 90, let's see if I get a happy medium. Okay, that's a totally different look. Totally different. My size levels is at 2. Oh, it's at 1. This does not seem like 1 because this is so big. So that's very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, it is cute. They're all cute, but you can see how organic everything is. So if we decide that, okay, I'm kind of happy with the sizes, but let me see a different pattern, a different seed. I don't want a tomato plant. I want a cauliflower plant. So I'm going to just click this, and when I click this, it'll automatically apply, and it'll go to the next seed. And just give it a second, and it goes ahead and gives you a new pattern. Okay, interesting. And it is still interesting that I am getting a really big range of levels, of my size levels. So this is a very organic growth kind. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make my scale 50%. Now, am I getting this because my overall scale is so high? That shouldn't really matter, but you know, again, it's a very organic growth kind. So I bumped the flowers down to 50% in scale. The amount is still 90. My range is still 1. My seed now is at 17. I'm at interior. Let's just see what 18 does. And I remember one time I went, okay, so now it looks a little bit more symmetrical. For me, that looks a little more pleasing, but I do have quite a big difference in my range. I'm going to leave it at seed 18. And what's interesting is sometimes if you go up a number, maybe like 4 for different size levels, sometimes that balances it out. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I've had that happen a couple times. Like you're not really sure. And I could be interpreting this wrong. Okay, that's interesting. I don't like that. Not at all. I'm actually going to go back to 1 to try to get back. I often wonder if I go back to the previous one, if it's going to generate it exactly the same way as it did a minute ago. Yeah, it did. So that's very interesting. Very interesting. I do like that. I do like that. So let's just see now. I click done. I'm going to go into 3D. That is pretty. It's very pretty. Very dainty. Let's see about my letter. Because I mean, if we really want to make it organic, we could put a monogram up here, you know. We could. We could. Especially if I made it smaller. It could be a little egg that's hatching up here. That's funny. So I'll go ahead. So this was seed 17. I believe it was. No, it was 18. That's right. Seed 18. So I'll just do design, save as, seed 18 origin. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this mesh and I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to move my origin. Okay. So I'm going to try to maybe make it emanate from the sun. Like if there's a sun in the corner, like when we were little and the sun would emanate. I don't know if this is going to work, but I could go outside of it. I'm just going to kind of go right up in the corner. Place mesh origin here. And hit enter. And I could just generate it from here, but I always like to remind myself what I'm on. And so I do have flowers and leaves, both. And I still have it at leaf 2. I could try some of the other ones. But I'm at seed 18. So I'm just going to hit apply and see what happens. So the only thing I changed was the origin. Oh, interesting. So it emanated from up here, but because I had interior selected, it did not fill it out. Is that because I only let it make 4 sprouts? Maybe. Let's try and up that to 8. This looks like halfway. Let's try and up that and try again. That's interesting. It is kind of cute. You know, it's almost like it's shining down on something. So I'll hit apply. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Now here's the other thing. My mesh object is a square. If I would have made the mesh object a different shape, this would conform to the shape. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do maybe 6 and hit apply. And then I'm going to go in and change the shape of my mesh so that we could see the difference between 6. Okay. So it is kind of taking on this like a triangular shape, but I'm going to make it even a little bit different. So I don't know if I want to copy and paste this, you know, to compare it. Maybe I will. Control C, Control V. And then our new one will make it say, I don't know, I'm going to double click that. Make it a brighter pink. Not sure what color I want it to be. I'll just go with that. And I don't know how I feel about that color. Whoops. But we're just going to go with it. I'll pull it out. So that's our new color. It is kind of blah. Let me double click it. And for lightness, I'll just hold my right mouse down. I don't want it to be red. We'll just go with that, I guess. So there, I can see it better now. Okay, so this new shape now, I'm going to take the old one. This orange now looks too close to the other pink. Okay, there we go. But let's go ahead and hide this. And now I am going to change the shape of this object. So I could just, create a whole new mesh object and set the point and everything, but I don't feel like doing that. I'm just going to work with this one. So I'll hit edit and let's see. I'll just click up here, place start point here, just so I can have, and I'm going to just delete this node because I just want to be able to work with this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this node and I'm just going to delete it so I have a triangle. It's a straight line. I'm going to make it a curve. Actually, no. I'm going to insert. I'm going to insert a node there. But then here, I'm going to curve it. And then here, I'm going to curve this. I'm just going to kind of see what it does with this kind of shape. I might be confining it too much. I don't know. I wonder if I hold my control, if I could make this horizontal. Yeah, it's just sliding horizontal. I don't know if I want to do that. Control Z. I'm just going to leave it like that. And I'll hit the check. And like I said, I could just hit generate, but I want to go into params to refresh my memory. So I have 6 max, range of 1. I still have flowers. Seed 18. The leaves are 2. I did want to change that up. But honestly, there's just so many choices. I mean, you can make a different design with a million different people. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. That it kind of came down here because it came out like that. Okay. Interesting. It is kind of cool. So it's like it's raining roses. And that would even be cool if it were like hanging over someone, or if it were like this, like a doorway. And then you had these on your doorway. That would be really cool. Did go ahead and make some changes to the params on this design. And I actually decided to make my scale a little smaller. So when you make your scale smaller, your sprouts are smaller, so they might not fill up your area. So then you have to increase your maximum sprout generations. So I increased them to 10 because I lowered my scale to 200 instead of like 295%. And I really like this, the way this came out. The other thing I did was I changed the curliness of my leaf. So it's curling less. Now, from what I'm seeing, the curliness, I thought it was this part, but maybe it's just the leaf part. I'm not quite sure, but because I still have leaf number 2, so it's still like an S shape. So, but at any rate, I made the curliness less to maybe try to straighten it out a little more. And from what I'm finding now about the leaf length is actually just the leaf. So it's not this part. Okay. Because when I went to 100% on the leaf length, this just got bigger and it wasn't pretty. But here's a design with the leaf length at 100%, and they're beautiful. And why are they beautiful? I think it's because I decreased the width to only 50%. And then I also decreased the curliness to only 10%. So the curliness affects the entire, sprout, even the part where there's no leaf. So that's only at 10%. So it seems like, the curliness is affecting everything from the stem part to the leaf part. Okay, they're both pretty straight, but they still have a little bit of a wave. Now, if I put this down to like 1%, maybe I'll get straight rays. I don't know. I haven't tried that yet. But just know that you can get a pretty leaf with a length of 100, but you'd probably want to decrease the width. And this is 2. So, I mean, I could see if maybe I went to 1%. I am kind of curious to see. Let's just hit apply and see what it is. Now, this is not origin point, just so you know. This is using a core. Okay, 1%. That's kind of pretty. It looks like a sunrise. It is kind of pretty. And it looks like you can go down to 0%. So let's just see. Yeah, so this is a core, and obviously my core is the circle. So for options, it's from core. Okay, so 0%, I still get a little bit of a wave. Is it because I chose number 2? Am I not going to get a wave if I choose number 1? I don't know. Like I said, there's so many options. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Now, it's actually kind of cool, but I have some overlap. So what that tells me is maybe, okay, my scale is still here. Now look, my maximum sprout is 1,000 or 10,000, but I have the span just to stay in the interior. And my range is 5, so I have small and large. How do I get rid of that overlap? Well, maybe make the leaves narrower. They're at 50%. Maybe make my range more like a 4. I'm just not sure. My seed is 0, so I haven't even changed to a different seed. There's so many variables to choose. I could maybe, I don't really want to go down in my leaf width because I like the width of the leaves. It's just this overlap that I don't like. So, and I like my overall scale. So the only other thing I could think of is to change the seed or maybe change the range. Maybe the length. Maybe this is too long. But then I won't get this effect. So I'll just maybe make the range lower. I don't see how that could affect it, but I'm sure I'll get a slightly different pattern. Okay, yeah. So I don't have any overlap, but it is slightly different. It's still cute. Looks like a little genie bottle almost. So, and then of course, I actually liked the 5 range better though. I just felt like it I'll see I'm getting overlap now. So I would go back up to the 5 and I'll go back down to 0. And oh, when you use the arrow, it automatically regenerates for you. Okay, so I'm kind of back to this one. So I don't know, guys. Maybe have a different overall size. And I guess I could make the length slightly shorter because that would shorten this one. Yeah, it's still overlapping there. So, you know, I guess I could try 90. I liked it when okay. Yeah, see now it's not looking so good anymore. It's not, well, I'm on leaf number 1. So leaf number 1 is kind of boring. Leaf number 2 has more movement. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. But I have overlap and I have some overlap here and mistakes. Now, is this connecting to the outline? Yeah. Let's go back. And leaf width at 50, leaf length. I'm going to go back to 100. Because I really did like the variety. So I'm really liking number 2 better. I have my scale lower, range 5. So cute. I just wish there weren't these overlaps here. Because, when you convert it to an outline, it's kind of a pain to have to get rid of these. So I didn't go to the next seed. I just really like this one. I can try a different one and just see. But you kind of get the idea that if you increase the length of the leaf, okay, that one's not bad. There's just a slight overlap there and there. Because I'd kind of like to leave this as so. Now my curliness is at 0. If you recall before when I was at 1, did I have overlap when I was at 1? I don't remember. Because like the ends of these don't look that good. But I'm not sure. I don't quite remember. And if you recall when I interrupted, that's right, this was at 10%. Okay. I like that. It's not bad. I can edit these two very easily. In my options, I'm at 280 on my overall. My range is 5. And let's see, what did I change? I went to seed 1. It's so hard to keep track of everything. I'm going to go back to this and just see. Can't leave well enough alone. So I'm at seed 1 and then totally different. Totally different. And I just changed the scale. I mean, that doesn't even fill it out. At 1%. Interesting. So when I was at 280, it filled out the bottom more. And even though the max is 10,000, it only will fill it out as far as what you stipulated for your span. And even if I did overflow, it only overflows a little bit. It's never going to go up to 10,000. I mean, for mine, the one that I do. So going back to 280, it didn't seem to be as horizontal. I just like that one, and I could work with it. So that's seed 1, range 5, maximum 280. There's no flowers. Leaf 2, leaf width at 50, length 100, and curliness is only 1%. So remember, curliness seems to affect everything, the leaf and the stem, but the length only seems to affect the leaf, because it says leaf length, and the width as well. So I know I'm repeating myself, but if you're going to make the leaf length 100, you may want to decrease your width because it seems to look better. Because if I went like up to say 100 for the width, I don't think it's going to look good. I'll see. I mean, my curliness is at 1%, so I've never tried that. We'll see. Yeah, see, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. So we'll go back down to, what was it now, 50. Enter, enter. And then the curliness is at 1%. And I think when I opened this up, my curliness was at 10%. So here it is at 1% curliness. And then at 10%, now that I like everything. So I'm at 280% on my overall size. Oh, interesting. So it's got slightly a little bit more movement. That's pretty as well. I don't see any overlap. So I'm going to click done and I'm going to save this. I have straight leaves, curly circle core. I already saved it, Control S, but I'm going to do Control C, Control V, and I'll move the first one over, and I'll take the second one and move it over. Probably going to have to make my hoop bigger, but and I'll make the second one green. And I'm just going to make the second one the 1% curliness. And just so I can have them for comparison when I come back. And then I'll change my hoop size. So I named this file, I know you can't see it, I named it Straight Leaves Curly Circ, meaning circle core, because the core is the circle. You know, my growth kind is from core. So I know this video is about the origin, but I just wanted to show you about the leaves and, you know, because I think I might have mentioned that they don't look good at 100%, but as long as you make the width narrower, they do look good. So I'll do Control S, but let's do settings. Hoop, I'll do width of, say, 500. Oh, that's right. When you do the hoop settings and you hit 500, you can't hit enter like you can when you're in the regular screen. You have to hit done or else it doesn't take effect. So Control A, and I can align them, but I don't feel like it. Just Control Alt C, Control 1, and there they are. Okay, so this one's at 10% curliness, and this is at 1%. They're both very pretty. Very pretty. Oh, see, we got a leaf down here. That really doesn't look as good as this one, to be honest. So this is the 1%. All right, I'm really going back to the video now. Now let's see what I did on the options. So I left the options at range 1, the same seed. What I like about it is the roses, a lot of them are on the outside here. it just looks really nice. I'm going to build a design with this. So I'm going to click done, Control S, and I'm going to copy this over to the other side. I'm going to like mirror it over to the other side, but I might want to make it smaller and so on. So if I do that with just the mesh, then when I regenerate it, I might get a different pattern. You know, it might look slightly different if I make everything smaller. So I'm going to actually copy and paste it, Control C, Control V, and I'll make this one green because I just want to keep my original just in case. Hide it, go to this one, and go to the transformation window or Control Alt T, and I'll leave this unchecked. Now remember, this is showing 190 by 190 because that's the size of our vector shape of our square. I'll go 130 and click apply, and of course my design will go away. Okay, that's kind of cute, and I'll hit this to close it, and I'll just, with it selected now, I'm going to go back into the params window just to refresh my memory, and I might even change my leaves to leaf 3, but I just want to see how this generates. So I'm going to hit apply. Okay. I mean, it's not bad. I have a little bit of a gap there. It's possible that maybe I should take this node and drag it out a hair, or just take this curve and drag it down a little. I might want to do that. Let's hit done, and I'll hit edit, and I'm going to grab this round node and kind of bring it out. I don't know if I want to bring this out or not. I can't decide. I'll just hit the check mark or enter. Go back into params. I'll just apply like it is and see what happens. And again, I'm on interior. I could hit overflow. But if I do hit overflow, I can more than guarantee that that's kind of cute. If I hit overflow, I probably would have to turn it into an outline and shrink it because it would probably go beyond the height of my hoop. Because right now, you know, this is at 190. My hoop height is only 200. But maybe my maximum sprout generations need to be bigger for it to fill the bottom. I haven't counted these. Remember, we're coming from the corner. That might be more than 10. And I just kind of don't like to put this at 1,000 or 10,000, you know, like you're allowed. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I overtax the system by doing that or something. So I'm going to try it again and see if I could get this to come down more. And then if so, I am going to maybe try to either make my leaf less curly. Okay, there. Okay, that's better. That is better. I could just go with that. My curliness is at 25%, but I'm going to try and see what happens. And you know, I try so hard sometimes to only change one variable so I know what is affecting it. Yeah, so it seems like it's still curly, and I mean, it's okay. It's still kind of cute. I do like it. I'm just gonna go and just try this one. I just want to see what it would do. Sometimes it really messes it up and it makes it look uh, too sloppy. Okay, that's different. Now I don't know which one I like better. I think 4 I usually don't like. And remember, my flowers are at a scale of 50%. I mean, it would have been nice for it to come out a little farther here. Let me hit done. Let me just hit edit for a minute. I mean, that's the pattern is doing that. I'm going to hold control and just drag this out because then it'll stay straight. I'm just going to see what that does. But I still want it to feel like it's curved. Okay, I'll go back into Prams. And so this is leaf 3. Okay. It's not a whole lot different from leaf number 2. And yes, these are going up, but the roses are hanging down. I like that. And then over here, they're hanging out. And that came out farther. In my options tab, I have 20 for the sprouts. I mean, would it have made a difference if I made this number bigger, like 50? You know, because that's only the maximum. So it'll go to the maximum that it can before it hits the edge. And I do have interior showing as well. And this is seed 18, so I'm still on the same pattern. I went ahead and off camera, I changed my leaf width and leaf length to get this effect. So notice my leaf length used to be 50%. Now it's 100. And my leaf width used to be 100. Now it's 50. So I swapped them. And I got this totally different look. You could see my leaves are longer, but they're narrower. So keep that in mind because this can give you something really pretty. And my curliness is at 25% still, but I could have went back down to 10% and gotten something totally different. Now let's say we want to do an auto repeat on this object so that it's mirrored on this side so then it looks like, you know, a window curtain or a stage. Something you could maybe put on a quilt block or a purse or even someone's shirt, you know, just about anything. The way to do it though is not to work with the mesh object because you don't really want to disturb the mesh object. I've just been finding that if I like flip the mesh object, you know, like do a mirror and auto repeat on it, the origin that we established over here doesn't move with the flipped object. Sometimes if you edit the mesh object, you lose your origin point as well. And if you lose your origin point, it ends up originating then from the center of your design if there's no origin point stated. Sometimes when that happens, my design doesn't even generate at all. And then I click on edit and I see that there's no origin point left. You know, this mesh origin point is gone. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that we just use outline objects when we start manipulating things until Embird gets it fixed, because I did report this to Dushan, and at the time I wasn't really sure why it was happening. I thought it was happening when I resized it, but I don't know now. It does happen when I flip it. I know that for sure. So, whoops, this one. So before we convert it to outlines, we are going to establish our start and end points on the mesh object itself. Because if we know that we're going to flip this, we're going to mirror and flip it, then we kind of want these two pieces to stitch seamlessly with no jumps or anything, no tie-ons or tie-offs between the two, I should say. So the easiest way to do that is establish your start and your end point right here where the two pieces are going to meet. That way the first one will start here, but it'll also end here, and the second one, it'll be flipped, will start here and it'll end here. And then if I wanted an echo around my design, I can easily make a pretty little connection outline of some sort going up to the outline. And I can make that pretty design like, double stitched, just like my mesh is going to be double stitched. So with that in mind, with my mesh selected, before I do any converting of outlines, I'm just going to hit edit. And I think the last time I did this, I made my start point up here. You probably can't see it because this is in the way, but there's a plus sign under this mesh origin. So that was my start point. Let me just hit 1 to 1 and try to zoom out a little. So I'm going to make my start point here. This was my end point. That's why you see this long thing here. I had my start point here and my end point there. But that's not going to help me with auto repeat and mirror because, if it starts here and ends here, then when I flip it, it's going to start way on the right and in here. So I'm not going to have that seamless connection. So I'm going to just click here on this node, right click. I'm going to place my start point here, and I'm also going to right click, place my end point here. So they're both here, and then I'll hit enter. And then Control S. I hit Control S a lot if you've noticed, because you never know. It's still in beta and it may, freeze up on you or something. So anyways, and the other thing is I'm going to delete this because I don't really need it anymore. This was my original mesh. I'm just going to get rid of it so it doesn't confuse us. And so now that I have my start and end point right here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll select my mesh and convert it to outlines. So with it selected, I go to Convert, Fill Mesh Sfumato, click, Create Outlines from Mesh. We don't want this one because this says Create Separate Outlines from Mesh. So we'll probably cover future videos on when to use this. So we're going to create outlines from mesh because this creates an exact identical copy of the mesh itself. So it looks exactly like the mesh. So we'll click that. Okay. And here it is here, and you can see down in the parts window that there's no scissors, so it stitches just seamlessly, and it's exactly the same as the original. It's right on top of it. If I click outside, you don't see any overlaps or anything like that. So these are my outline stitches. So I'll just click on this and I'll go ahead and hide it because we're going to work with the outlines now And we're going to auto repeat this and mirror it to create our design. And just before I do that, I just want to show you something. If I come down here, whoops, and scroll all the way up, I could ungroup it, but I'll just leave it grouped. And sometimes if I click on this while it's down here, I lock up the program while I'm recording. So I will ungroup it. Let me right click, group, ungroup. If I go and scroll all the way up to the very first object of the outlines, you can see they're starting over there. And if I hit Control-1 to zoom in, you can see here, I could even hit Edit, and it always goes to the ending node, of course, but this is like an outline, so the starting is the same as the ending. If you aren't sure, you know, you could see the plus sign that's highlighted, and the ending stitch, you know, was on top. Control-Z. You can hit home on your keyboard. That takes you to the starting stitch. Where this one starts, that's where we're going to have our echo box around it. We're going to have our echo box connect to this point here when we get to that point. And then where this one ends should end in the same spot. It's right there in the same spot. If I hit Edit, you know, it's pretty long. If I hit Control-1, you know, but it's not a connection or anything. It's an outline, so it's part of the design. And drag over with my right mouse, and I hit Edit. You know, it's the same spot where, whoops, Control-Z, grab my magnifier, and I'll hit End on my keyboard, okay, and I'll zoom in. It's the exact same spot where it started. So I'll hit Enter. So that's nice. So let's go ahead and scroll up. That bottom one is selected, so hold Shift, grab this, and group it. Group 1. Okay, I'll hit Control-1 so I could zoom out to see it. And now I'll hit Control-S just to make sure, and we'll do an auto repeat on this object. So I'll go to Build, Auto Repeat, and we want it to be a line because we just want it to span, you know, across here. So we have one over here. And it'll normally go to your Layout tab first, and right-click. We only want 2. And because this is 1 and 2, it always counts the first one that's already there. Go to the Transform tab. We want parallel to baseline. I believe these choices are more for if you have like a circle or area or what have you, because if you'll notice, like this one, as it's rotating around a circle, they aren't, the actual design isn't rotated as it goes around, but this one is. These are rotated as they're rotating around the circle. But this doesn't really come into play when you use line. So you want parallel to baseline. In fact, if you were to choose normal and then choose mirror horizontally, like that's what we want this mirrored, it won't work. It won't mirror if you have normal chosen and line. And I'll show you what I mean. If I hit preview, see, it doesn't even mirror. It stays the same. So you want this to be checked, and that is checked by default. And then mirror horizontally, line, your layout, you only want 2, preview, and there it mirrored horizontally for us. Okay. And then you hit the check mark one time because that'll just bring you back to the main screen. You don't want to hit this button because this will this like an escape button. So if you hit this button instead of the check, then nothing will happen. You won't get your mirror or whatever. So you just have to hit this one time. And I know that's kind of confusing because there's other tools in Studio Next where you see like this symbol and then you see maybe the word apply. You have to hit apply and then you do have to click this. But for this particular tool, you only have to hit the check mark. So it's very confusing. I think I might have mentioned that to Dushan, but a long time ago. So anyways, we'll hit the check mark one time. And there we have our mirrored object. And as you can see, you know, we see a scissor here and you say to yourself, well, why didn't it connect? You know, we have this one starting and ending here. We have this one then would start and end in the same spot, right? Well, we have to create a connection. So we just right click on the second object and then left click create connection to previous. And so it creates a connection up there. We'll hit Control 1 to zoom in, and it's a straight line. And you may say to yourself, okay, well, I don't know. Do I like the way that looks? I don't know. If I don't like the way it looks, and remember, it's only going to be one layer where everything else is two layers. If I don't like the way it looks, then I could come in and edit it. And I can actually, let's see, if I hit edit, I can make it come down here. But then if it does come down here, remember we're going to have 3 layers here. But is that okay to have 3 layers in this little spot? So I'm going to take my magnifier and I'm going to just zoom in a little bit because I want to see this down here. And this is a round node, so I'm going to hit insert so it's square. So I can drag it down here. I want it to snap to outline edges here. And maybe I'll snap it to the grid, this grid line. So these two. So uncheck snap to node. And then I'll just drag this down. And there it's snapped. And then for these, I could just snap them on to this line that's already here. You know, these out object edges that are already here. So, but I want them to be snapped evenly. So maybe I'll just pull down a guide and I'll just try to get them perfect. So now I'm going to snap to outline edges or object edges and guide. And I don't have my guide locked, so I have to make sure I get the plus sign when I get close to it. I want the plus, that's the narrow plus sign is what is selecting the node. The thicker plus sign selects the guide, just so you know. So come here and I'll snap it. I'll grab this one. Whoops, you see here I'm close to it, so I don't want to move anything there. I want to move away there. Now I'm selecting the node and I'll snap it in. And I'll hit enter. So now these two will stitch seamlessly. And then we can also, like I said, we can have an echo box around it, and we can have that echo box attach to the beginning of this one. And then we can have it come back after this one. Go back up to the box. And I do have a design that I already did. I do have a file that I did on this actual design. So, because I'm going to retrace these steps, but I'm going to do it with an actual quilt in the hoop block with you. So let me just hit Control 1. So I just want you to see this. So these are stitching seamlessly, and then I would add my echo box. So I'm going to show you the file that I created for this, and then we're going to recreate it on a realistic quilt block. So let's see, open recent quilt in the hoop example. So here it is, and I'll just go into 3D, and I'll click on it, and I'll hit Control 1. Okay, so if I click on this, and I ungroup 2, so I'm just going to show you, so this is kind of what we're going to do in our next example with a realistic quilt block, because this obviously isn't even a square block. It's bigger than my hoop. It's, you know, but I just wanted to show you the basics before we get into more complicated math. So the blue rectangle is symbolizing, and I won't select it because then you won't see it. The blue rectangle is symbolizing your seam on your quilt block. So this will be a quilt top that's already pieced together, and you're ready to quilt it, this particular block, so you've got it sandwiched with your batting and your backing and what have you. And so the blue line represents your seams of that block. So you kind of want your echo to be a 1/4 inch from that seam line. You want your echo line. So you start with whatever size the block, the actual block is, and a 1/4 inch in. Well, that's about, in millimeters, a 1/4 inch is 6.5 mils. But I'm going to make it easy and just say 6 mils. You know what I mean? It's just easier. It'd be easier if I just said 5 mils, right? But I'll try to be truer and say 6 mils. So we're 6 mils in here and 6 mils in here. So we're basically shrinking this rectangle by 12 mils. In Studio Next is different than Editor. So in Studio Next, if I were to shrink this box so that I get a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, I have to shrink it 12 mils. And it's too bad that when you do shrink, like if I copied and pasted this and went to transform, offset, shrink, and I click on these arrows, 10 is the biggest. I need to request to Dushan that we get at least 12 or 12.5 or 13, you know, just so that we get that 1/4 inch without having to do this twice, because you either have to do this twice, you know, first do it at 10 and then do it again at 2 to get your 12, or you have to just resize the rectangle, X out, you know, in transformation window, and then resize it, which means you have to, like, you know, do the math. You have to subtract 12 from this number and 12 from this number. So I don't know which way is easier or harder, but at any rate, we'll do that, like I said, with the other example. So that's your seam. Your first echo is a 1/4 inch in. from there, and I'm stitching it double. So it's going to stitch around itself 2 times because these are double. I might as well make this double, right? You don't have to, but it's starting and stopping up at the top, as you can see right up here. And then from that point, I made an outline. I made it look like this little teardrop. I just made it look like part of the design. So I made this first one, and let me hit Control 1. This just goes down and connects to the rose here and starts our first. Let me go into vector view. You can see it highlighted in red better. And then it goes down to the rose and it starts stitching. And then after it stitches the rose, I made this connection, okay, that was the one we had already made, to the next, you know, huge side, the next side that's grouped and, you know, everything's in it. If I hit Control 1, you know, it stitches the entire side. And then after it stitches that side, it's going to end up here as well, because remember, we made it start and end up there. And then it'll stitch this outline that I put in. Hit Control 1. And then you say, well, why didn't you just stop there? Well, because I wanted it to be double stitched like the rest of the design. So after it stitched that one, I had it stitch, I had it go backward on itself, okay? And then I had it come back up. And then it ties off up there. So that's basically how to get, you know, everything you see in purple is what's going to stitch seamlessly with no jumps, meaning no ties. Control A, Control 1. And I can go ahead and I'll just select that and then come down here, hold Shift, and I could do a sew sim on it, and you can kind of see how it's going to stitch. And let me pause it. So I'm going to have it stop if there is a jump. Okay. So it's doing just the purple. It's not doing the blue. The blue is just a representation of the seam on the quilt block. So let's see, I'm going at 50. Let me start at the beginning. So here it starts, and you don't see anything until this. I see something there, but that's probably a connection that I made. So let's just run it. And so it started here. It's drawing your box. It's going to draw 2 of those. And now it's going back over it again. You can't really see. It would be kind of nice to be able to see it, you know, the needle moving, so we could see where the needle is. So now it's stitched that outline down to here. And you can see it's double stitching the design. I'll go a little faster, maybe 200. So then after it stitches that design, I went back up to 50. It's doing its double stitching. And now it made its connection. See, that was just a connection. That's why it didn't stop on it. I have it just, let's see. No, this wasn't selected. Hold on. I thought it was. Let me pause it and move it back. I thought I had this selected. No, it wasn't. Okay, now it's selected. Sometimes it's hard to tell. I don't need the color change, but, and I don't want to click stop on connection because then it'll stop here and we won't know if it's a connection or a jump. And I just want you to see that this is a connection. And since I have stop on, scissors or jump stitches, it won't stop here. So I'll click run. So it just went right past it. And that was the connection to the flower. So then it'll just stitch all of this one. And when it's done stitching this one, it'll come back up here, come back down, and then go up. Went back to 50. And there it went back up and down. And so then that's it. It would stitch seamlessly. We'll hit stop. So I'm going to go back to our other design, and I'm going to show you how to, kind of the math involved and how I did all this. It's not that hard if you use expand. Expand makes it easy. So